date too. Okay. Let me see. I see it. I see it. Piece of pistachio. It's just, I should put some little retouch on. And nothing major. Face is definitely a whole little dry. I got some that can handle that. Make sure I have no boogers. You always gotta check. Listen, this dude, he took a little nap. You know, one of them 6 o'clock naps. And I let him, knowing that I was putting everybody else down early. So,
Hearing on Capitol Hill, where we heard Pam Bondi defend her department's handling of the Jeffrey Epstein files. I interviewed 6 survivors of Epstein's abuse and 2 family members who tell me they feel that the Justice Department is not taking accountability. We've got that conversation here on our NBC News Now special coverage. Thank you all so much for being here. I know you literally have just come over off of Capitol Hill, where the Attorney General had appeared for that hearing in front of the House Judiciary
let me get logged in.
I want to do just a couple of show of hands moments on how you feel about that, and then I want to talk about your reaction to everything we heard today. So, with the show of hands, can you show me your hands if you were satisfied with what you heard from the Attorney General today?
Oh,
Nobody. Show of hands if you are frustrated with what you heard.
Very much so.
Very much so. Teresa, tell me more about that.
Well, going into this morning, and much of this process, I have this perspective that you need to give people the opportunity to do what they say they're going to do, to fulfill their word, put their money where their mouth is, so to speak. And we have yet again seen that go the complete opposite direction. There's no integrity. There was no integrity in that room today, it seemed like, as far when it came to Epstein and Maxwell. You know, there was a lot of expression of other good outcomes on things, and I can agree with a lot of what was said, and there was nothing that gave us any bit of hope of any kind of integrity and doing the right thing when it comes to Epstein Maxwell accountability for their investigation, which she claimed was happening, and we're going to be waiting to see the outcome of that and see if that's an accurate, legitimate statement.
Danny, I see you nodding and shaking your head.
I think there was such a lack of empathy today. There was such a lack of, honestly, humanity today.
She said lack of empathy and lack of humanity. Wow. Wow. And remember, these are the Epstein survivors. Lack of empathy and humanity. Oh, now that goes deep. that definitely goes a little deep, if you ask me. But then again, who am I to judge, right? It's the humanity for me. Especially when you listen to that Pam Bondi. It's like she ain't got no kids. Pam Bondi must not have no kids. She can't have no kids. Hey. Krista Carr. Hello to Krista Carr. She said, "Como es?" She said, "Konnichiwa." Isn't that hello? Isn't konnichiwa hello? If I'm not mistaken, I believe so. Who be saying that in the intro? Something the Hintons. Monique. I don't know. Oh. You say you don't know, and you're the one that said it. Isabella? I thought konnichiwa was hello. Let me get logged in over here. Yeah, that's what apparently don't have no kids. She can't have no kids. Child, she probably ain't got no sisters, no brothers, or sisters, cousins, or nothing like that, because ain't no way. Let me look it up. I hear Monique saying it all the time on her show, on her she got a YouTube channel. Monique something with the Hintons. Konnichiwa. Hold on, I might have spelled it wrong. Yeah, it means hello. Come on, Isabella, get it together. I said that. I was like, I think I hear her say it all the time, but they put it together. They don't separate it. The Japanese they don't separate it. I think that they no, you're fine. You're fine. I just because I hear it all the time. I be watching Monique. She got like this little side hustle channel on YouTube, and she'll tell you about all the side hustles that you could do. And she be, what she say? Hello, bonjour, hola, konnichiwa. She go through like all of them. I'm like, oh, okay. That means hello. So when I seen it, I was like, oh, okay. I'm over here trying to figure out how the Epstein survivors feel about watching Pam Bondi. She said it was a lack of empathy and humility. Go ahead.
That, I think all of us felt a little devastated about was
Devastated.
that she had 3 opportunities to address survivors.
Ooh.
She stood up, and all she had to do was turn around, and she could not even turn around.
I'm telling you, Pam ain't got no kids. That's probably what it is. Pam Bondi must not have no kids. Cause then she would have to have what they call it, a little soul. What she said? Empathy. That's what she would have had to have. Empathy. Positivity. If she would have turned around and faced those survivors, child, she couldn't even do that. Po Pam.
For so many years, I can't speak for everybody, but
Sure.
for me,
Go
I felt
ahead.
like such a ghost walking through Epstein's mansion. I felt
Ooh,
like
a
there were
ghost.
so many people who saw me. There were so many people who should have spoken up.
I'm
And
finna put
instead,
you
I
a
felt like
little
I was
that what you
less than
get.
nothing. And now
Not
to
stains.
not have A.G. Bondi turn around and acknowledge us, it is the exact same type of victimization. It's horrible.
Charlene, what did you think of that moment when you all were standing there and she was asked by one of the members of Congress to turn around and address
She
you?
wasn't there.
I felt really degraded. I felt that she's not taking at all any accountability.
Don't get me started.
She's not following any kind of transparency. And honestly, the thought that I have is birds of a feather flock together.
Oh,
So I feel like the way that
ooh.
she handled today.
Not birds of a feather. Okay.
Is often the way that our president
And this is NBC, so you know. Ooh. Whew. And I think that when did this drop? 5 days ago. 2.2 million views already. Come on, please.
have treated us at a really high up.
Uh-oh.
And I felt like she was treating us just like everybody else has in the justice system and beyond.
I was looking at you all. The cameras there had shown a view of you in that moment, on your feet, in front of this hearing room, in front of all of these cameras. And I wonder, Jess, Liz, all of you, if you can take me, what was going inside in your mind? What was happening in your mind? What were you thinking as that moment was happening?
Sure.
So one of the things I was thinking in that moment is that it is such a simple act to turn around and say,
Acknowledge.
I apologize for the terrible job our DOJ did.
That's, ma'am, what you're forgetting is that requires accountability, honey. Who is about to apologize? Honey, that requires accountability. You're not going to get that from this administration. I'm so sorry. I do apologize. But unfortunately, they cut from a different cloth, apparently. And so You got your, they coming out in little trolls. I believe that's what they releasing them a little bit slowly but surely. But what I can't confirm, Let me get me a quote real quick. Where she went? Oh, okay, I see it. Goodness, let me finish.
Releasing that is something that is completely inappropriate. To take responsibility for that, for the damage they did to us, not to state it as, yes, we understand damage was done. No, to us. It was such a simple thing, and it's something we teach children to take accountability, to recognize.
Did I not just say accountability?
So there wasn't even
Did I not just
an
say that?
adult in the room
Bingo.
that could apologize
Bingo.
for the damage done to children and girls.
Did I not just say that?
In remarks, the Attorney General said, "I am deeply sorry for what any victim has been through, especially as a result of that monster."
Who said that?
That monster.
Who said that?
Not,
Hello, Isabella.
so there's
Here,
the crimes
here, my
of
love.
Jeffrey Epstein, and then there's the crimes of the cover-up.
Get you
And
some
she's
color.
part of
Get you
that
some color.
continuing cover-up.
And what did you say? Because I
So
was.
she
Oh,
didn't
she said hello
apologize for
again.
that.
Hey. She can't, my love. She can't.
Monster, she said it as if he acted alone. Yes.
Those monsters. Them. Edit this, please.
Epstein was absolutely a monster, but he didn't act alone.
Oh, oh,
And I
oh.
think that we now have more evidence of that from what we've seen in the files. And what is really difficult for me to wrap my head around is...
Drop a name. Girl, if you don't tell me somebody's name. She talking like, ma'am.
I met Epstein Maxwell when I was 21. I'm almost...
Okay, well, they hit different when you grown. It hit a little different when you grown. Give me a second. Let me see what's going on over here with my Talking about she met them when she was 21. What? Excuse me. Oh, I hope they don't copyright me over here with this doggone NBC News. Get off of the screen. Get off of the screen. Just go, You could take the tape off of the camera so we could see. Isabella, Oh, that's, no, I think it's somebody else here. I believe. I had came back. I was on here earlier, and then I had to come back. We're watching the, thumbs up.
And
How old she said she is again? Does that matter? Let me see what she said.
to respect our government, I was raised...
Okay. Thank you for stopping by, honey. I do appreciate it. Love you.
I'm
Mwah.
almost 53 now.
Oh, she almost 53. Okay. 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 I mean, I like your little butterfly. Okay. I'm 53. Almost 53. Okay, ears.
I was just raised differently. I was raised to respect our government. I was raised to be able to speak to people of different political parties. And maybe I don't always agree with them, but their insights help me shape my opinions.
Okay.
And I just don't see that happening. And that's what I grew up in. That's the America that I grew up in. And for us to now feel like the Department of Justice, which is in charge of seeking justice for all Americans who are victims of crime, they've just completely let us down. And
She talking about herself like we didn't just lose Charlie Kirk. And he want to talk about the ballroom. Ma'am. Over the age of consent? Ma'am. Please. Hurry up.
per se,
Hurry
if
up.
you have been a victim of crime, we want you to call the FBI. I called the FBI. And in the release of files, my intake report was released twice.
Uh-oh.
Once with part of my address, and once
where my name was unredacted several times, including in a sentence that said Stein was a victim of Epstein and Maxwell in the mid-90s. So, I find it really difficult to
I don't know why I was trying to put that in my pocket. Let me just move on. Stop. Let me just move on. Let me see what happened. Let me see what happened.
Complete meltdown on Force One as he was heading
He
back
don't
from
get no
West
sleep.
Palm Beach, Mar-a-Lago, which was the site of the child sex trafficking identified in the Epstein file.
Come on, Midas. Let me see. Is he really having a complete meltdown? Because you know he'll be. What happened to your nose? Don't worry about it.
Air Force One as he was heading back from West Palm Beach, Mar-a-Lago, which was the site of the child sex trafficking identified in the Epstein files, and he was flying back to the White House. Donald Trump was asked questions about Epstein aboard Air Force One.
Again,
his name appears
you know he over it.
times
Ooh.
in the files that have been released. The fact that his name on the unredacted files appears over 1 million times.
Ooh.
And now we've learned there may be as much as 50 terabytes of documents not produced. That can mean hundreds of
50 terabytes.
Of documents haven't been produced. The most devastating documents have not been produced. So, Donald, what's your response? He goes, I have nothing to hide. Literally, as he's hiding millions of files, he goes, I've been exonerated. The files show that I did everything right. Total exoneration. Total exoneration. You and your regime are at the heart of this cabal. Here, play this clip.
Exonerated. I have nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein. They went in hoping that they'd find it and found just the opposite. I've been totally exonerated. In fact, Jeffrey Epstein was fighting that I don't get elected with some author, the sleazebag, by the way. And I've been totally exonerated. No, they're getting pulled in, and that's their problem. I don't know, they're going to see what happens. But I watched her in Munich, and she seriously has Trump derangements in her. I've been totally exonerated on Epstein. And it's really interesting because they've been pulled in. Think of it. They've been pulled in. Clinton and many other Democrats have been pulled in.
Next, Donald Trump attacks Marjorie Taylor Greene, even though she's no longer a congresswoman. By the way, he's going into her district soon for a rally to attack her again, even though she's not a congresswoman, because she keeps speaking out against Donald Trump's cover-up of the child sex trafficking and Donald Trump covering up for the Epstein class. For the Epstein crew, that's Donald Trump's main constituency. Here, play this clip.
Tell us about your trip to Rome, Georgia on Thursday, your trip to Marjorie Taylor Greene's little district. Well, we have a lot of people that want to take Marjorie Taylor Greene's place. And many, many candidates, and I have to choose one. And they say whoever I endorse is going to win. But we have a lot of good candidates who want to take their place.
And a reporter tries to ask a question about another topic, like, are you worried, Donald, that you've stretched our U.S. Carriers or Air Force carriers too thin by sending them to the Caribbean and then to the Persian Gulf and then back to the Caribbean? Does that worry you? He's like, I'm not going to answer that. I just want to talk about Epstein. I'm exonerated. You understand? I'm exonerated. I'm not talking about like actual questions that president should be answered. I'm just going to lie and say I'm exonerated. Here, play this clip.
You ask him about Epstein, and then, you know, on one day, are we still talking about this guy?
I'll answer the question.
So a reporter tries to ask him another question. What about Cuba? You going to invade Cuba? I don't want to answer that. I'm not answering that. Here, play this clip.
Warning Cuba to make a deal. What does that deal look like? What do you want them to do?
Cuba is right now a failed nation, and they don't even have
There you
jet
playing
fuel
her.
to get for airplanes to take.
Only spontaneous on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
We're talking to Cuba right now. Marco Rubio talking to Cuba right now, and they should absolutely make it.
Okay, so he definitely didn't have no meltdown. Midas. Them in that clip, mate. They be doing the most. Let me see what's going on. Look at Calvin. Let me see. I'm just scrolling at this point. What's Justina talking about? Hold on, let me see. Oh.
Guys on the show, did you date?
You know, Maury,
Come
what's
on
so
now.
crazy? I'll be honest.
Ooh, Justina got on too much makeup. Oh my goodness. Do you have to have it caked on like that?
Times when I've said I need to find out who the father is. Is it Concita? Is it Nick Cannon? I don't know. You know what's so funny? Everyone thinks that I've dated like every single guy on that show, and it's just you know, I plead the fifth. No, listen, it's what people think.
It's okay.
No, I know. Trust me, Maury. One thing about it is I got no shame in my game. Them thinking I've dated everyone, absolutely not. It might be one or two guys who tried their little luck, kicked it here and there.
Right.
For some reason, I can't get rid of Conceited. He's the one that I got my new TV show. I can't get rid of him. He's like a bad rash. You know, he keeps coming back. I can never completely get rid of him.
How many of those guys on the show did you date?
You know, more.
She gonna be on my timeline for a little bit because I was over there watching her rap with, who is that? Millie, somebody, whatever his name is over there in New York. With the sign that you go when you rap or sing or something. So let me see what's going on. I'm just trying to see what's going on. Let me go over here to Veil Army real quick. Give me a little breath of fresh air. Hold on, don't leave me. Hold on, let me see. Oh, this one. Let me see what's going on. I had a little piece of gum. Little Mentos. I gotta remember to eat it as a mint first. Child, I hate when people do that. Come on down here real quick. Oh my goodness. He lied. Look at this fence. There be some boys.
Hey, you know George? Who? George Bush?
Uh-oh.
Oh, hey, look at that.
Ooh-wee. Don't just drop me like that. Thank you for, knees. Uh-oh. With that drink. What was, was those noodles? Okay, ma'am. Ooh. Uh-oh. Blue.
Watch out.
Ooh.
Hey.
Wave. They so savage. Look at him screaming. Don't fall. Look. That's funny. Oh, uh-oh. Whoa. Oh, goodness. Girl, get out the way.
Ava! Ava! Get over here! Get over here! Get over here!
You didn't have to scream at her. I think she was just caught up in it, like, ooh. And everybody else just looking like, ma'am, come on and get out the way, please. Uh-oh, not them stairs. With the drinks. Knees giving out. Ooh, ooh, oh. Come on, Dad. Wine. Uh-oh. Stella Rose did not make it. Look, face. Face. Look, look. Uh-oh, watch your face. Ooh. He looking for the punch. She looks scared.
Go, go, go!
Ooh. Don't hurt yourself. Don't break it. Put a hole in the wall. Look at these two. Look, what is going on? Ooh, scoot back. Uh-oh, not another one. You ain't got it. Okay, you do. Look. Oh, jeez. It's a window behind you. Why you doing all that? Not the pinata. Oh, my goodness. Why y'all ain't telling them to stop? You finna break the bed with all that playing. Even worse. All that glass everywhere. Oh, I like that rug, though. Watch your feet. Never mind. I bet you didn't see that coming. What was, what? Y'all be so bored. Cut it off. Uh-oh. Ooh. Ooh. Not over the cards. Oh, goodness. Hold me, please. Oh, no one is there. Okay. Coins fell out. Let me see. Ooh, Ooh, they'd be so bored. Let's make that go on out. Look, let's make that go on out. Uh-oh. Well. Ooh. Hope the driver's okay.
This time.
What's that? Ooh, ma'am. You ain't, Hit it.
Why is this happening? Oh, man.
Oh, he's sweet. Oh my God. Oh my God.
All of the drains are burst on Ross Road, and all the lids are popped off, and all the water's gushing out. Oh my God, a car's just come past and absolutely dumped me, like. So I had my window open.
With your mouth open, too. Not just the window.
Give me a rag, Jack, hurry up!
Uh-oh. Good. Here we go again. Orange finna give out. Oh, let it go. Let it go. Oh, jeez. Okay. Okay. You got it? Or, oh. Oh, that's a slip. Mm-mm. That's a fall. Mm-hmm. Just let it go. Oh, yeah. Oh, catch him. Oh, your face. He had to play that one off real good. Oh, your nose.
Hey guys, it's your
Oh, man. Gotta love Fail Army, man. People be just so bored. People be just so bored. Oh, my goodness. I'm finna get up off of here. And I thought Jaden said she was pregnant or something. That's what she said. I don't know. I'm just checking the algorithm, seeing what's going on. Because Tiffany Lucas, let's go. Come on, Adrian. Who is that?
man. What's your name? Huh? I can't hear you. Tiffany? All right, Tiffany. I'm gonna change these handcuffs out, okay? And then I'm gonna roll you over and I'm gonna sit you up, all right?
It was November 2023, and police were responding to a call made by a concerned neighbor. Officers were clearly confused about what they were walking into, but then again, everybody was. But with a distressed mother lying on the driveway, and rumors that her 2 children were still inside the house and in danger, the situation quickly turned serious. However, while this chaos was unfolding outside, it tragically was already too late for them. And when police officers stepped inside Tiffany's home, that was when the story began to unravel. A story that you will soon come to realize is filled with lies, delusions, and deeply troubling clues.
Oh no. Oh jeez. I'm trying to figure out how I didn't like her face. The thumbnail. I don't know if you caught the thumbnail. I had clicked on it so fast, but we know who this is. You know who this is. The 2 little boys, right? Oh, jeez. This one is going to...
Hi there,
is it
folks.
over
My
with
name is
already?
Adrian, and today we're traveling to Kentucky to look at a story that left a town in disbelief.
Oh, my
I have to
goodness.
say, this story really will leave you wondering what happens behind closed doors.
For sure.
Not only for the family and all of the social media left behind,
Right.
but also all of those red flags which were kind of seen but never fully realized.
Exactly.
Now, I have to say, we've got quite a lot to cover in this
Let's
story,
go then.
which is slightly different to the usual.
That's okay. Thumbs up, my bad.
Please grab yourself a coffee, get comfortable, and let's caffeinate while we investigate. This is the case of Tiffany Lucas.
I'm glad you was on the algorithm, Adrian.
Welcome to the Bluegrass State, folks, also known as Kentucky, or the horse capital of the world. It is home to the world's longest cave system, hosts the oldest continuously held horse race, and produces more than 95% of the world's entire supply of bourbon, which, considering how big the world actually is extraordinarily impressive. However, Kentucky has a darker side too, because not only does poverty run deep here, but it's actually too deep to ignore. Because with that comes a whole list of other issues too. We're talking about the brain drain, political division, and something that we'll touch later on in this video, the opioid crisis. Unfortunately, poor health is one of Kentucky's hardest truths to swallow. The state regularly ranks near the bottom in the country for overall health outcomes, which, as you will soon realize, feels especially relevant for the story that we're about to talk about. Because in many ways, this case is yet another casualty of those ongoing struggles, and it raises one simple question. When was the last time that you took your own health seriously? And I don't mean the kind of serious where you're inflated, scrolling and trying to convince yourself that you're fine or not, because trust me,
We got 30 more minutes. Oh, might as well. I had took the
experiencing a heart attack, which, yeah, I somehow doubt. And with this story touching on both physical and mental health quite heavily, I think now is the perfect time to learn about this video's sponsor, ZocDoc. The beauty of ZocDoc is that it makes looking after your health that much easier. It's a free website that helps you find and book high-quality network doctors so you can find one that fits you. And with more than 150,000 providers across all 50 states, ZocDoc certainly has you covered. Whether you're looking for dentistry, eye care, primary care, dermatology, or one of the other 200 plus specialties offered, you can easily search by specialty or symptom to find the care that's right for you. Not only that, but they give you the flexibility and freedom too. Whether you want to see someone in person or via video, that is totally up to you. And their review and verification system lets you get a real sense of who your doctor is. Oh, and did I mention that when you're ready, you don't even need to phone them. You can just book instantly. Appointments through ZocDoc happen fast too, typically within only 24 to 72 hours of booking. In fact, you can even score same-day appointments. And so, be kind to yourself this year and look after your health. Go to ZocDoc.com/coffeehousecrime to book an appointment with a top-rated in-network doctor today. Thank you so much to ZocDoc for sponsoring this video, especially with how much health pivots on this story. And now, let's get straight back to our case today. Our case today begins on November the 8th, 2023, in a small city named Shepherdsville, when a horrifying call was made to the emergency services. It was on this morning that a woman had phoned the police and said that her neighbor had come to her door and then suddenly collapsed. And as you can tell in this recording, you can actually hear how frantic things were.
Whoa.
Where's your emergency?
219 Benwood Drive, Shepherdsville, Kentucky, 40165. My neighbor just came up to my door and just passed out, and I can't get her to wake up.
Okay, is she breathing?
She is,
How old is she?
I would say, in her early 30s. And now she's screaming that her kids are dying. I don't know. I don't even know her name.
The woman, named Tiffany Lucas, was a 32-year-old mother who lived next door and was now lying on her neighbor's driveway, drifting in and out of consciousness. Her neighbors had no idea what had happened inside her home, only that this looked like a medical emergency and that Tiffany might be in serious trouble. While one of the neighbors stayed by her side, another neighbor walked towards the Lucas household, heading straight towards what could be possible danger. The man knew that Tiffany had 2 children inside,
the boys.
and so, whatever was going on, they could possibly be in harm's way too. But tragically, little did they know that it was already too late. Within minutes, police officers arrived at Bentwood Drive. They rushed into the driveway and then kneeled beside Tiffany. But moments later, then realized that the real emergency wasn't outside. It was actually inside with her children. Following the neighbor's husband, deputies then moved carefully through the Lucas household, calling out as they cleared each room. As they walked through, everything seemed quiet and maybe even calm. That was until they reached one of the bedrooms. On the bed and lying side by side were Tiffany's 2 sons. Vigils, people shared simple memories about how polite they were and how Jaden would hold doors open for adults like a true gentleman. It's kind of strange, isn't it? If you look at Tiffany's social media, all it is, well, rainbows and sunshine. Because from the outside, all you saw was a happy mother who really had it together. But once again, social media really can be just nothing more than a facade. Because deep down, Tiffany's world was broken. You know, I actually do believe that she deeply regrets what she did, and she never even really meant to do it. But at the end of the day, that doesn't matter, because either way, 2 young boys' lives are gone forever. This case really was senseless, but as always, I'd love to know what you think about this one. So please do share your thoughts in the comments section down below. Thank you again to ZocDoc for sponsoring today's video.
I'm like, did we get what the fuck just happened?
How much health pivots on this
That was
story.
me. That was
And now,
me.
let's get
That was
straight
me.
back to our
Look,
case
that was
today.
me. I
Our
didn't know
case
what
today
had happened.
begins on
I was
November
like,
the 8th,
what?
2023, in a small city
Let's
named
scoot over.
Shepherdsville, when a horrifying call was made to the emergency services. It was on
Scoot
this
over.
morning that
I
a
was
woman
like,
had
what
phoned the
happened?
police and said that her neighbor had come to her door and then suddenly collapsed. And as you can tell in this recording, you can actually hear how frantic things were.
Where's your emergency?
219 Benwood Drive,
Maria.
Shepherdsville, Kentucky, 40165.
Hello.
My neighbor just came up to my door and just passed out.
Thank you for saying
and I can't
hello,
get her to
my
wake
love.
up.
Okay, is she very sick?
She is,
How old is she?
I would say, in her early 30s. And now she's screaming that her kids are dying. I don't know. I don't even
What?
know her name.
The woman named Tiffany Lucas was a 32-year-old mother who lived next door and was now lying on her neighbor's driveway, drifting in and out of consciousness. Her neighbors had no idea what had happened inside her home, only that this looked like a medical emergency and that Tiffany might be in serious trouble. While one of the neighbors stayed by her side, another neighbor walked towards the Lucas household, heading straight towards what could be possible danger. The man knew that Tiffany had 2 children inside, and so, whatever was going on, they could possibly be in harm's way too. But tragically, little did they know that it was already too late. Within minutes, police officers arrived at Bentwood Drive. They rushed into the driveway and then kneeled beside Tiffany, but moments later, then realized that the real emergency wasn't outside. It was actually inside with her children. Following the neighbor's husband, deputies then moved carefully through the Lucas household, calling out as they cleared each room. As they walked through, everything seemed quiet and maybe even calm. That was until they reached one of the bedrooms. On the bed and lying side by side were Tiffany's 2 sons, that being 9-year-old Jaden Howard and 6-year-old Morris Baker Jr., also known as Peanut. What happened next is too disturbing to show on YouTube, but in short, although both boys were still alive, they were only barely clinging to life, and that is because it appeared that they had been shot 4 times in total. Police officers shouted for the paramedics, who rushed in to then desperately try to save both of the boys, and within minutes, both of them were on their way to a local hospital. Once they were gone, detectives then focused their efforts on trying to understand what precisely happened in this bedroom. And soon enough, they concluded that this must have been an act of double homicide. But outside of that bedroom, something, or rather the lack of something, really stood out. They suddenly realized that there were actually no signs of an intruder, and there was no evidence to suggest that anybody outside of the family had even entered the property that morning. The windows were fine, the doors hadn't been tampered with, and the locks were still intact.
What was the question?
What was going on? What this meant, or at least suggested, is that none of this had actually come from outside of the family home. And of course, that left only one person remaining, the boy's mother, who was now lying outside on the driveway. It's kind of a very grim and uncomfortable realization, isn't it? But on that note, this story suddenly became a whole lot darker. The neighborhood was stunned as ambulances tore down the street towards Louisville and officers wrapped the home in police tape. You could see the confusion on neighbors' faces. What precisely had gone wrong inside that house? Who was hurt? And why was Tiffany lying there in handcuffs? So, focusing back on Tiffany for a moment, officers described her as dazed and disoriented, but not seriously injured, which, given the circumstances, actually made them more uneasy. Paramedics checked her over and found only a small cut near her ear, something that she later described as a graze from an attempted self-inflicted gunshot. But the thing is, it barely even looked like a wound at all, because not only was there no major bleeding, but there was no real trauma either. The neighbor who had entered the house before police arrived had one blunt theory to all of this confusion, the same one that most of us are already thinking, that, tragically, Tiffany had shot her own children. And the thing is, at this point in the investigation, it seems like officers were coming to the very same conclusion. And so, right there on the driveway, she was placed in handcuffs and arrested on the spot.
Look, after they done took her ass out of handcuffs.
Looked even worse than before. All the neighbors could see was a mother incoherently in handcuffs, surrounded by more than a dozen police cars and ambulances who were now swarming her home, and 2 children who were now missing. And tragically, by that afternoon, that disbelief turned into something far heavier, because despite doctors' best efforts, both Jaden and Morris would die from their injuries. In the evening, they were both pronounced dead at the children's hospital.
Bingo.
They've been selling you the hard way on purpose, but nobody knows ovens can be cleaned like this.
All right, not doing anything special here, just spraying the whole oven. Everywhere it's dirty, it gets sprayed. And now it's fully covered covered. I'm just wiping with a soft towel, not scrubbing hard. This is
Fabuloso.
nothing sticking. And yeah, that's what the actual glass looks like.
Child, that's a whole new damn
Look at that
oven.
reflection. It's spotless. Now I'm doing the same thing inside, and this is
Look.
where it's usually the worst. Old grease.
That's a
burnt
whole new
spills,
oven,
stuff
child.
that's been baked on forever. And
Yeah,
again,
try to
not
sit here and
scrubbing
sell
hard
it,
at
won't they?
all that baked on
What is it
grease
called
is coming
again?
right
Dry
off.
what?
Guys, that's the inside now. Looks like a brand new oven.
It
and
is.
It took less than 5 minutes. All right, so my name is Sarah, and I'm the founder of Dr. Clean.
Oh, okay, Dr. Clean.
Almost immediately, the charges against Tiffany Lucas were now upgraded from attempted murder to 2 counts of homicide. Whatever had happened inside that family home, the consequences were now irreversible. And of course, at the center of it all was their mother. So, with that said, who precisely is Tiffany Lucas? Well, Tiffany may have looked like a fairly ordinary single mother who was doing her best, but let me be not the first to say that she wasn't. Her Facebook page, which is filled with selfies and school photos, show exactly what you'd expect from a proud mum who also maybe has too much confidence. We'll get to that in just a second.
Not
In
too
fact,
much.
only 6 months before the deaths of her sons and on Mother's Day, she wrote that they were always together and never apart, and called them, quote, 3 souls and 1 heart, adding that she wouldn't know how to smile or survive without them. There were plenty of photos of them hugging, wearing matching outfits, and all the rest. I mean, there are quite literally hundreds of photos here. And the thing is that if you only knew her through social media, you would probably think that she is a tired but loving mum. However, it is also obvious that she was trying to promote herself left, right, and center. If you go back far enough in her social media, you can actually see that she was trying to get into fitness and modeling. And there are plenty of pictures of her in semi-professional photo shoots at best. Tiffany would also share sneak peeks as if it actually meant something. Because seriously, who cares? And she would also call herself a bad little vibe. She would even try to launch her very own runway show, which ultimately would flop. Many of her photos showed her in sports gear and outfits, in front of seemingly expensive cars, and wearing designer handbags. I really like this one, by the way, where she's sticking her butt out so hard that she's essentially Donald Duck, and her handbag is just kind of slapped leaning against her. A lot of her posts were self-indulgent too. For example, there is this one where she wrote, "Leveled up and only look back in pictures. Simply the best, better than the rest." Except that she spelled leveled incorrectly, and even managed to get Tina Turner's lyrics wrong too. I'd like to remind you that while all of this was going on, she was also posting pictures of being the perfect mother. Which, I don't know, it just kind of feels a little bit immature, especially while you're raising children. And the truth is that the deeper that you look, the more that her image starts to feel more like a performance than anything else. Kind of like she was trying to compensate for something. And that's true, because behind the scenes, Tiffany's life had been unraveling for years. So, let's rewind for a moment and go right back to the beginning. The truth is that, although we do know that Tiffany grew up in Kentucky, there is not much information known about her childhood. What we do know, however, is that she had Jaden on March the 13th, 2014, with a man named Dural Howard. Morris followed a few years later in 2016 with a different father. And although Tiffany would never stay with either of these 2 men, we do know that both boys remained close to their extended families. And then, only 3 years after Morris was born, tragedy struck in 2019 when Jaden's father, Dural, was shot and killed in Louisville.
Dural?
Now, strangely, that case was never solved, but there is no evidence to suggest that Tiffany was actually linked to his murder. I have seen a few news reports try to clickbait and pivot on that and say that maybe she was connected to it, but honestly, I can't see it. All of a sudden, Tiffany was left to raise Jaden and Morris all alone and without much support. And honestly, from that point onwards, life really did seem to steadily go downhill. In the year 2016, and at only 25 years old, Tiffany opened a small convenience store in West Louisville called Miss Tiff's One Stop Shop. In fact, she even appeared in a local news segment to talk about it, and there's footage of that here.
A lot of people don't make their way down here, but if there's a Walmart, you come out of the woodwork to Walmart. So I would have brought a lot of people to, stop and check us out.
It is kind of strange to watch that footage now, because that business wouldn't last. And we should probably talk about her former low-level arrests too. It was in the late 2010s that Tiffany was arrested for drug possession, receiving stolen property, and other minor offences. At one point, she even allegedly served a month in jail on a drug conviction. Nothing that would have been enough to mark her as dangerous, but certainly enough to show that she was in fact struggling. After that jail time, she mostly fell off the radar, at least publicly. But privately, things were still deteriorating, and by 2023, Tiffany was both unemployed and using drugs again. And it turns out that her home on Bentwood Drive reflected that. Relatives described the house as filthy and barely functional. Utilities had allegedly been shut off for non-payment, and trash had now piled up. Apparently, family had even seen eviction notices sat on the countertop. By now, Tiffany and the boys were essentially living in survival mode. However, online, she would still paint the perfect picture.
If you're
Tiffany,
looking to
what happened? I don't know what happened. Let me see.
The
Okay.
viewers will know that we've been here time and time again.
For sure.
But those glitzy and curated images seen on social media
Oh, yeah.
versus the actual gritty reality behind closed doors
For
could
sure.
not be any further from the truth. And so,
Always.
this is a reminder to all of you today, but please never compare yourself to anyone online.
Never.
Because the truth is,
Especially
it is
me.
rarely the full story. Anyway,
Child.
as it turns out, Child Protective Services
Oh,
have
no.
even been called to the property numerous times in the previous months and years.
But what?
Not only by concerned relatives, but by worried neighbours too. In fact,
Neighbours?
at one point, Morris's aunt even gained temporary custody over both boys when the authorities believed that Tiffany was making the home unsafe due to her drug abuse. And looking back, they were right on the money.
Oh,
Now,
jeez,
eventually, both
Tiffany.
boys were returned to their mother. But rather than lean on her family for help and support, Tiffany grew increasingly isolated. Both friends and relatives described her pulling away, becoming ever increasingly paranoid, and talking about very strange things. Strange things like people were stalking her, that both Facebook and YouTube were controlling her children's minds, and even that the Wi-Fi was somehow manipulating her thoughts. Now, of course, on the outside, none of this was actually visible to anyone. However, behind closed doors, things were quite evidently slipping. By 2023,
I'm just trying to figure out what happened. Because, I mean, this story definitely went viral for sure. It's them little boys for me. You know, as a parent, as a mom, I'm editing, so I have to multitask. To be quite honest, because that's just the way content creating goes. You gotta create and create at the same time. And so I do have to edit. It's just hard to catch like a good angle because I got like an angle here and an angle here and I'm over here. But I'm listening. It's just unfortunate. Let me see what was the date on this video. It's just very unfortunate. Is this the 15th? 12:49 a.m. What happened to them little boys?
things were well and truly collapsing for Tiffany. With her business now closed and no stable job ever since, she was essentially financially broken. And although she was receiving some benefits from the state and support from one of her children's fathers, she was still deep in the red. And so, couple that with her deteriorating mental health and a returning addiction to a range of different drugs, well, you certainly have a recipe for disaster.
Why are we using all these substances? Because, I don't know, you'll have to ask
To be
her.
more specific here, Tiffany had become addicted to opioids. And although she would abruptly quit them, even that was not a good idea. Because it turns out that sudden withdrawal to opioids can trigger extreme anxiety, paranoia, insomnia, and, in severe cases, psychotic symptoms.
Uh-oh.
It was actually around this time that Tiffany had grown paranoid again, believing that
Again?
Wi-Fi and video games were actually controlling her children. She believed that their minds were now being altered and that something unseen was influencing the household. And by the way, this wasn't just too much Fortnite or too much YouTube,
Sure.
but it sounded like genuine fear. And personally, I think that is what makes this part of the story so unsettling. Because while all of this was going on, life on the outside just carried on as usual. Again, I would like to reiterate here that this wasn't some sort of huge moment of alarm for Jaden and Morris, but instead a mild and lingering worry, until one day they were gone. On the day before the murders,
Okay.
that being November the 7th, 2023, Tiffany took Jaden and Morris out to a Waffle House, where surveillance footage shows the three of them sitting in a booth like any other family. The
Okay.
boys can be seen eating, while Tiffany scrolls through her phone like she has so many times before. Nothing looks strange, and if you didn't know the ending to this story, you would never look twice at that video. But of course, unfortunately, we all know what happened next. Although the following day was a school day, both Morris and Jaden never made it onto the bus. We don't know whether Tiffany intentionally kept them home or if they simply missed it. But what we do know is that hours later, they were dead. At approximately 11 a.m., a neighbor's Ring doorbell camera recorded 4 gunshots over the course of roughly 30 seconds. And after the final shot, there was a gap of several minutes before Tiffany herself appeared outside screaming for help. It is reported that, during that moment of quietness, she then allegedly tried to take her own life, and that is when the gun jammed. Whether that's true or not, we may never actually know. However, it would explain the small graze along the back of her ear and why the weapon was found on her bed. With Jaden and Morris pronounced dead and Tiffany now in custody, officers were, of course, desperate to understand what happened and why. So it is no surprise that, later that same day, Tiffany was then brought into the sheriff's office for questioning. As you can see, she was
Yes,
still wearing the
lawyer.
same clothes from that morning, and, to be honest with you, still looked just as disheveled as when she had originally been picked up. It is worth highlighting here that Detective Richard Beale, who sat in on the interrogation, had already walked through that bedroom. He had already seen the bed, the blood, and the bullets. And now, he had to sit face to face with their alleged killer and ask her to explain what happened. And let's just say that the entire thing was bizarre at best.
Manipulate my children, manipulated my mind,
Who is?
all them game systems, and just everything.
The games?
Yeah, like PlayStation, all the games the kids play.
Yeah,
It manipulates their minds and then makes it to your mind.
that's on the internet that you have access to now is
It's terrible. It's terrible for the kids. They need to stop. Like, my kids are beautiful angels, and
Were they misbehaving earlier? No. Do you? They are? Do you know what happened to them today? Can you talk to me about that?
I just did.
As you can tell, Tiffany was obsessed with talking about technology, which she believed manipulated her and her children. She kept ranting about mobile phones, video games, YouTube, and the internet.
Don't bring YouTube in it. Please don't bring YouTube in it. Hey, I did say hey to Maria. Don't bring YouTube in it. Don't. YouTube don't got nothing to do with it. YouTube don't have nothing to do with it. Because it's an app, and you can always delete it. You could put like a little passcode on the app store. You could put a passcode on the iPad, the phone. Don't bring YouTube in it.
As if they were actively controlling her household and slowly breaking her family apart. And honestly, it didn't really sound like technology at all.
It didn't.
sounded
It
like
don't.
something else. once. Being the only sane person between the two, Detective Bill eventually guided the conversation back to the obvious question.
Right.
Of
What
course,
happened
that
to the
being,
boys?
if you love your children, then how did they end up shot? And that is when she brought up a name that no one in the room had ever heard before. That being Parker Borders. And what followed next sounded less like a confession and more like a conspiracy theory.
We'll help you out there. But if you didn't do it, who did it?
I don't have nothing else to say.
Oof.
If you're in your 30s, this one's for you. Salon gels are so damaging, and regular nail polish chips after just...
So, to recap here, Tiffany now claimed that a man named Parker Borders had been manipulating her mind for years, and that included not only planting strange ideas in her mind, but even controlling her phone. And when detectives asked where Parker was, or what he did, or even where he lived, well, Tiffany, she could not answer any of those questions. Instead, all she said is that apparently he lived close enough to remotely manipulate her. She could never provide any real or verifiable information either, only the sorts of things that would, in essence, help her defense. For example,
she got me
she
yawning.
claimed that the gun apparently belonged to Parker. And as the interview went
Just
on,
a random
you really
person.
could tell that Tiffany was slowly cracking under the surface. In fact, she would even go on to ask for help and a psychiatric evaluation. And by the end of it, investigators really did have enough. In fact, they were quite sure that there was no
Look at Nero.
accomplice, no intruder, and no Parker.
Look at Nero.
This was just a woman who refused to take accountability and, in return, created an imaginary figure.
Look at
The
Nero,
whole
child, making his
Parker
cameo.
scenario was absolutely surreal. But, of course, detectives would still have to take it seriously. I mean, if there was even a 1% chance that a man who was capable of murdering a child was still out there, then it was worth checking. They ran the name through databases, searched local records, looked for prior contacts, and even searched through addresses. Anything that might connect a so-called Parker Borders to Tiffany Lucas. Yet, even still, despite their best efforts, they found nothing. And that's because Parker Borders simply did not exist whatsoever. And once that became overwhelmingly clear to police officers, Tiffany's story started to look less like a lead and more like a delusion, because even without her statement, the evidence already told a rather straightforward story. So, what precisely did that look like anyway? To begin with, there were no signs of forced entry, no unknown fingerprints, and no indication that anyone else had ever stepped foot inside that bedroom before the children were shot. And what was left behind at the property suggested that the house was not the scene of an invasion or a struggle either. It was quiet, contained, and essentially undisturbed, except of course for the bed where both boys were found clinging for their lives. And when confronted with all of this, Tiffany suddenly pivoted. Now, it apparently was all some sort of accident. I would like to remind you here that investigators found 4 spent casings throughout that bedroom, and both Jaden and Morris had been fatally shot. That does not sound like an accident to me. The
Sure
Ring
doesn't,
camera
Tiffany.
also recorded those 4 gunshots over a period of roughly 30 seconds. That was not in quick succession, meaning that the shooter had plenty of time to figure out and think about what they were doing. To emphasize here, the more that I looked into this case, the more I realized that Tiffany is the kind of person who will never take accountability. She will never look at her
Sound like Pam Bondi to me. But then again, what excuse could you possibly even dare, like, come on now, we're trying to be serious here. What excuses could muster up about killing the boys? What ma'am? I'm assuming she just wanted to hunt it for the rest of her life, cause that's really what's gonna happen. But then again, listen, people are struggling behind the scenes. people are literally struggling behind the scenes. And I was trying to figure out why was it that Kai Cenat was getting all of this pushback about bringing up mental health. He talked about mental health, you know, like once Mafia-thon was done, I think that was in November, right? Mafia-thon was in November. And then I think he took like December off. And then at the beginning of the year, he was just, ooh, mental health, and I'm gonna get my life together, and you know, whatever happened with him and the chick who he was, whatever that was going on, I don't know her. I ain't never heard of her, so that ain't got nothing to do with me. I know that somebody was just talking. It could have been her. Like she had said something and then he had responded or something like that. You know. Okay, you had one of those public relationships that didn't work out, and you know you have to. Okay, we become very familiar with those. Go ask who is that? Christy and Desmond. We get a lot of those couples that be wanting to, you know, be in the limelight, and then when it's all said and done, you know, you have to kind of go your separate ways. Go ask Blueface, Krishan, Jaden, Stunner Girl. He just have a whole line of them. Just nobody ever lasts. Nobody ever really truly lasts, especially over there in his saddle. But people are always going through stuff behind the scenes, are struggling. And I remember Kai Cenat had brought it up about mental health, and then he was getting so much pushback, you know, because his people, his age group, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I believe Kai is over there with them Gen Zs, if I'm not mistaken. And they, because you know they are so far removed from reality, allegedly, because that's how they act. Not all of them, but some of them just be acting like they are just so to whereas mental health is not even like, it hadn't caught up to them. Let me just put it that way. Like mental health hasn't caught up to them. Like it hasn't caught up to them, you know, because they got that TikTok. You know, they got the TikTok. They got the IG Reels. You know, they got the YouTube Shorts. They got the Snapchat. They got the Facebook. You know, and whoever else, you know. So they are just constantly scrolling. They got the Discord. They got the Kick. They got the who else is that they be over there streaming on? Okay, the Twitch. You know, so they're constantly like, to the point to whereas, you know, mental health, it ain't dawned on them yet. Like it ain't become like a thing to them yet, a necessity to actually be able to understand what mental health encompasses, like your mental health and what it entails, and actually how to like take care of it and how to understand like the different avenues and how to pivot too. But we are starting to see it more and more over here in the true crime arena. We're starting to see it more and more. Obviously, it's extremely unfortunate for sure. But man, people are just losing it. I mean, literally just losing it. Like you just wake up one morning and you just fucking shoot your kids and then walk out the house like, oh my goodness. You just see her. I'm like, what happened? And then because remember, you have to talk about it. Okay, what happened? Man, don't come talking about no story. Bringing up this person, bringing up that person, all this. Ma'am, tell me what happened.
Or flaws and think, yeah, I need to correct them. Because all of us are broken in some ways, right? And none of
See what I mean? Look, we are all broken in some way, form, or fashion. And that's okay. Especially when you take the opportunity to actually acknowledge it. Yes, yes, I will admit, I'm totally broken. I'm totally broken. Because I'm human. So I accept that about being a human. I 100% accept that about being a human being. I am completely broken. And I have to acknowledge that, and I also have to accept that. Or else I'm just going to be constantly trying to find a way to escape that reality about myself. I'm going to always try to find ways to find things, find people, find other opportunities to help me escape that reality. And then I have to deal with the consequences. And then I have to also deal with the symptoms of.
perfect. But the difference between a good person and a bad person is the ability to reflect and improve. And here Tiffany was making imaginary figures to take the blame for her own drug-fueled actions.
You see what I mean? Like now you didn't went on a bender, maybe, or what happened? We don't know. She ain't. Let me just get to the end.
Moving into the legal proceedings of this case, once the interrogation ended and the evidence had been processed, everything else seemed to move quite quickly. And that is because there was not much mystery left about what happened inside the house. The only real question now was for the courts to determine how Tiffany would be held responsible and whether her mental state would change the outcome. As you already know, she was formally charged with 2 counts of murder,
Right.
one for each of her sons.
Sure.
And not only that, but her bond was also set at $2 million, meaning that there was no realistic chance that she would be released in the interim. Even early on in the investigation, her defense team made it clear that they intended to focus on her mental health.
Sure.
They never disputed whether she shot both boys,
Right.
because obviously that would have been a complete waste of effort.
Oh.
In parallel, they signaled that they might pursue an insanity defense instead, arguing that she had been suffering from a severe mental health break which was brought on by drug use, withdrawal, and paranoia. Notice the nuance there, by the way. Drug use, not abuse. They also claimed that she was not fully grounded in reality at the time of the shootings, and that her thinking was distorted enough to qualify as a mental disease or defect under the law. However, an insanity defense is, of course, a gamble. It requires multiple evaluations, expert testimony, and a huge amount of persuasion. And given the physical evidence, her behavior after the shooting, and the fact that she immediately tried to shift blame, it was never a strong case to begin with.
Oh.
And then, all of a sudden, about a year after the murders, the case would take an unexpected turn when, instead of going to trial, Tiffany would plead guilty. Of course, this was a shock to many others, especially for someone who had initially invented imaginary culprits. Oh, and when asked directly whether she was pleading guilty because she was in fact guilty, she answered yes. And observers described her as both emotionless and cold as she said it. Tiffany's plea was open, meaning that not only was there no negotiated deal, but the sentence would be entirely up to the judge, and that she was effectively placing her entire fate in the court's hands. During the sentencing hearing, relatives of both Jaden and Morris filled the courtroom and delivered some of the most harrowing victim impact statements that I've ever heard, filled with both anger and grief. It was clear that neither of the families were willing to show any mercy towards her.
Them
Honestly,
boys.
it's hard to blame them.
Yeah. Them boys. Ooh. 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 You're a monster.
To both of those families, they concluded that Tiffany had been selfish long before the murders of the two young boys. She was selfish in her addiction, selfish in the years of neglect, and selfish for consistently placing herself before her children's most basic needs. They believed that her addiction and her choices had put both boys directly in harm's way, and that if she had simply put both of them first, then she would have accepted their offers in looking after them while she got herself clear. Meanwhile, her attorneys reiterated that she'd been experiencing powerful delusions and a psychotic episode during the murders, again referencing the idea that she had then tried to take her own life afterwards. And although the judge did not ignore that argument, he would also not soften his language or his stance on her. Instead, he spoke about what it really means to be a parent, not merely providing just food and shelter, but safety and protection too. In the end, the judge imposed the maximum sentence available, that being life in prison on both counts. And so now, Tiffany is basically as good as dead on the outside. I do have to say here that technically, Kentucky law allows parole eligibility after 25 years. However, the prosecution were quite blunt about the odds, because in a case like this, with a mother killing her own children, the chances are practically almost non-existent. And so, as she was led out of the room in handcuffs, the legal process and, effectively, her life was now over. I think this story hits a little bit harder than most.
For sure.
This wasn't some fraud scheme or some love triangle gone wrong, but two innocent children that had no control over their destiny. In the weeks and months that followed, Shepherdsville didn't quite feel the same anymore, and there was this thick sorrow that just seemed to hang in the air. By the way, that thick sorrow really does have a feeling. I speak about that from recent experience. It was only 2 days ago that I visited Bondi Beach in Sydney, where a mass shooting happened just last month, and you really could feel that sadness in the air. And for Shepherdsville, I imagine it really did feel like the same kind of grief.
I just want some puzzle.
I didn't hear about that in Sydney.
Many residents described the same emotion here, grief. A candlelight vigil was held just days later at a local church, where hundreds showed up, including friends, classmates, teachers, neighbors, and family. Family members spoke about how many of them had tried to step in and help Tiffany and the boys. Several had called Child Protective Services over the years, while others had even offered to adopt them outright. Looking back, if the system had just listened a little more closely, then maybe Jaden and Morris may still be here. The Lucas household itself quietly transformed into a memorial, where flowers, stuffed animals, and letters were left at the door, and photos were taped to the fence. For multiple weeks, people stopped by to leave something behind, and, in a way, it became less of a crime scene and more a place of mourning. And through all of it, and across conversations and local news interviews alike, the same question kept surfacing up to the top. Could this maybe have been prevented? But the truth is that there is no easy answer,
never know.
and cases like this rarely hinge on one missed moment. They are usually the result of dozens of small failures. And this one was, of course, no different. Jaden Howard was only 9 years old when he was murdered, old enough to be independent and look out for his younger brother, but still young enough to get excited about things like video games and school field trips. Family members describe him as gentle and protective, and the kind of kid who naturally stepped into the big brother role. He liked sports, being outside, and doing anything that let him burn off energy. And Morris, or Peanut as everyone called him, was only 6 when he died. Smaller, louder, and always trying to keep up with Jaden.
Somebody coming in loud at midnight.
Loved animals, soccer, and tagging along behind his brother like a shadow. And if Jaden went anywhere, well, Morris wasn't far behind. Every photo of them, even the ones taken by their mother, told the same story. And although Tiffany may have recorded moments for social media, it was Jaden and Morris that were always genuine in every single one. They loved their mother, and of course, they loved each other. After their deaths, the school set up counseling for classmates and created small memorials in their honor. And at the vigils, people shared simple memories about how polite they were and how Jaden would hold doors open for adults like a true gentleman. It's kind of strange, isn't it? If you look at Tiffany's social media, all it is, well, rainbows and sunshine. Because from the outside, all you saw was a happy mother who really had it together. But once again, social media really can be just nothing more than a facade. Because deep down, Tiffany's world was broken. You know, I actually do believe that she deeply regrets what she did, and she never even really meant to do it. But at the end of the day, that doesn't matter, because either way, 2 young boys' lives are gone forever. This case really was senseless, but as always, I'd love to know what you think about this one, so please do share your thoughts in the comments section down below. Thank you again to ZocDoc for sponsoring today's video. Go to ZocDoc.com/to book an appointment with a top-rated in-network doctor today. Anyway, I'll be back again next week for a new video, but until that moment arrives, remember to look after yourselves and each other. And of course, stay safe and stay curious. Thank you, and goodbye.
Whether she meant to do it or not, you know, we still have to deal with the consequences of our actions. And when I tell you, come on, Adrian, you're on a roll. Go ahead, because I need to catch up anyway. Since you already got somebody queued up.
You have no idea. She was a teenager growing up in Canada. She had good friends, a decent school, a loving family. And then there's him, an older boy from England, someone that he'd met online, and someone who lives an entire ocean away. It starts innocent enough, just messages after school, late-night calls, and little gifts that were sent to her in the post. Awkward teenage flirting that slowly turns into something that feels like love. He talks to her every day, says that she is his world, and even tattoos her name on his arm. Which, yeah, is a little bit intense. But hey, that's just devotion, right? Well, months pass, and then years, until one day, she actually books that flight.
Is that me? Oh, that is. I was like, I thought it was Adrian. Goodness, it's active out there at midnight. My goodness.
The journey is more than 4,000 miles across the Atlantic Ocean to meet the person that she is convinced is the love of her life.
Okay.
The one who is supposed to make everything click into place. And for a while, it works. It feels incredible. But then, the cracks start to show.
Of
The
course.
same cracks that were always there.
Uh-oh.
Only now, she can't log off. She can't close the laptop. And she can't mute the chat. Because now, she isn't separated by screens anymore. She's alone, right there with him.
I'm gonna kill her. I'm gonna f***ing murder her. It's driving me crazy.
Hey there, folks. My name is Adrian, and today we're traveling to Chelmsford.
Didn't
which
you
is found
tattoo her
near
name
London,
on
to look
you?
at a story that began more than 4,000 miles away in Canada. It was in the afternoon of February
What's the
1st,
question?
2022, that police forced their way into an apartment to find a man named Jack Seppel on the phone to his sister, which, to be honest with you, sounds ordinary enough, right? However, the reason why he was on the phone to his sister was far more sinister than you may imagine. And when they took a closer look at his apartment, because, you know, they were there over grave concerns over somebody else, they found many damning clues. We're talking about things like hidden weapons, blood on an Xbox controller, and even a human body. The whole lot. But let me tell you folks, that was only the beginning, as this story gets far darker than you may imagine. Before we begin though, just to let you know that I post true crime once or twice a week here, so if you haven't yet, please do consider subscribing. And now with that said, please grab yourself a coffee and let's get comfortable. This is the case of Jack Seppel.
Seppel.
Welcome to Chelmsford, folks. Found to the northeast of England, Chelmsford is an expensive yet quiet city to live in. With a historic cathedral, commuter town energy, and weekend markets, it is what most families would describe as comfortable to live in. The weekend markets here will make you hungry. Trust me, I know London very well, and you can't quite beat its food scene sometimes. And honestly, that's my problem, because I love good food, but I just hate everything that goes before it. You know, like meal planning, the grocery shop, the actual time spent in the kitchen. And what happens if you miss an ingredient or just mess the whole thing up? That is tragic. So recently, I've been using something that makes my life ridiculously easier. And of course, that's HelloFresh. And by the way, I am not exaggerating when I say that it's actually changed and revolutionized the way that I eat throughout my week. Because now there's no more sad dinners or takeaways. It's actual home-cooked dinners with real ingredients. And everything just shows up at my door, pre-proportioned and with step-by-step recipes. Which honestly is great, because that means no more wandering supermarket aisles at 8 p.m. wondering why coriander costs $12. Most of the recipes take like 30 minutes or less too, which of course is faster than waiting for delivery and obviously way healthier. As some of you might know, I'm now back at the gym and trying to build myself out.
Okay,
And
okay.
HelloFresh has got more than 15
So then-
high-protein recipes every single week, which is perfect for me. I'm actually hitting my protein goals without living on shakes like it's some kind of lab experiment.
Hold on,
Oh,
let me
and
see.
this is
That
the
was
part
today.
that I really like. But HelloFresh is flexible, meaning that if I'm traveling, filming, or even script writing, I can just simply pause, skip weeks, swap meals, or even double up. Whatever really, there is no pressure, and it all works around me. And strangely enough, when I sat down and worked out how much I was spending on takeaway and random groceries,
Tell he on a commercial.
this actually works
See why you
out
gotta
cheaper.
find stuff to
So,
do.
yeah, it does make me wonder, why didn't I start this sooner? So,
Gotta
what are you
find
waiting
stuff to
for?
do.
Use my code CoffeeHouseFM at HelloFresh.com for 10 free meals plus free shipping. Free meals applied is discount on first box, new or returning subscribers only, and varies by plan.
Right.
Thank you again to HelloFresh for sponsoring this video. Go to HelloFresh.com and use the code CoffeeHouseFM. And by the way, thank you to you folks for listening too. Healthy eating. And now, let's get straight back to our video today. Life here can be calming, comfortable, and even peaceful. However, on February the 1st of 2022, that sense of peace was suddenly shattered. It all began when police officers were called to a one-bedroom flat found near the city centre. And when officers forced their way inside, they found a young woman who was lying face down on the bed. Chelmsford police were horrified by the details. Upon closer inspection, they noticed that the woman had been stabbed over 90 times. And it turns out they already
90? I'm not that distracted. 90 is over that word.
She was the same person that the call to emergency services had feared was in trouble, and that was Ashley Wadsworth. At the time, Ashley was only 19 years old and was a Canadian tourist who was visiting the UK on a travel visa. She had travelled here for what was supposed to be the adventure of a lifetime, elevated with love and romance with her long-distance partner. But here's the thing. At first glance, it may be tempting to say that this was just another shocking headline. But the real truth is that it's deeper and actually far more chilling. Because this murder wasn't random or sudden or even begin in that flat in England, but it actually started a decade earlier, across the Atlantic Ocean and on the internet. But before we can get to what happened or even why, we must first travel all the way over to Vernon and back to the year 2002. It was here and in the Okanagan Valley of British Columbia that Ashley was born. Born in the year 2002, Ashley was raised by her mum, Christy Gendron, and was close to her older sister, Hayley. People describe her as the kind of person who made everything that little bit breezier. She was warm, social, and openly affectionate, and she liked to play sports like ringette and tennis. And although her parents had been separated for quite a while, she had good relationships on both sides, with her dad, Ken Wadsworth, in the picture just as much as her mum was. Now, this part is important later on in the video, but during her late teenage years, Ashley became interested in faith and turned to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. She was even baptized there too, and would find community wherever she went. By the year 2021, Ashley had graduated high school and had even been accepted into Thompson Rivers University in Kamloops. However, and like so many other people during COVID, the pandemic really scrambled her timeline. Life and education wasn't quite the same anymore, and so she decided to take a gap year. And here is where things get really interesting. But for Ashley, this wasn't just a...
Let me tell you something. fall for it. Please don't fall for it. If they try to tell you, hey, I'm going to take a gap year, please don't. Please don't. Just do yourself a favor and no. Mm-mm. I'm telling you, don't do it. I'm not telling you something that I don't know. Something that I'm not going through currently, that I'm experiencing it now. He was like, I'm going to take a year off. I'm going to just, which I wasn't complaining about it, of course, obviously. But just I'm like, well, get your general ed classes out the way while you taking you a gap year. I'm just saying, just
Here or time off, it was a window of opportunity. An opportunity to meet someone that she'd planned to meet for many years. Sitting quietly in the background in messages, Discord calls, and late-night conversations, Ashley had found her constant. And that constant was a man in England named Jack Sapple. And by the way, Jack wasn't just a mate or a good friend, but someone that Ashley had actually fallen for. And somebody that she believed would finally make everything make sense. And so, on that note, now that she was finally an adult, what was she to do apart from, finally meet the love of her life?
Why are you not?
here we go. You were supposed to be busy. Don't bring the poster up now when I don't need it no more. I needed it. Hello, I'm back. Hello, how are you? Welcome back. I wouldn't say happy Monday, but it's happy Tuesday now. Listen, I appreciate you coming in, stopping by, saying hello. Hey, ain't nothing going on over here. I'm just chilling, watching Adrian do what he do best. I appreciate you stopping by, saying hello. Mwah. Thanks. Multitasking.
Powerful erections, even after taking an ED medication. It comes down
That's
to
what I
how
appreciate.
works.
Hey, I'm just
Stimulation
stopping
starts in
through.
the brain, where signals are sent to the nervous system, triggering the release of nitric oxide. That relaxes blood vessels, increases blood flow, and leads to an erection. But if any part of that process...
Meanwhile, across the Atlantic Ocean and back in Chelmsford, there was nothing particularly remarkable about Jack Sepple. To be honest with you, he was just another quiet teen in an English town. And I guess, in a way, that is kind of what makes this story so unsettling. Because at the beginning, there were no red flags.
Oh, at the beginning.
It was back in the year 2015,
It's always at the
when Ashley
beginning.
was only 12 years old, that she did what many of us would do after school. She would routinely jump on the laptop, message friends on Facebook, and maybe even play video games. And it was somewhere in that endless online web that somehow she found Jack. Now, at least at the beginning, they were
I don't know how.
pen pals and nothing more or
I don't know how.
Jack and Ashley would message each other about school, music, cultural differences, and their own little jokes.
I don't know
And
how.
because Jack lived thousands of miles away, there was also something kind of romantic about it too. However, here is the difference. Because while Ashley was outgoing and social and knew how to make friends in the real world, Jack really was not that kind of guy. He was quieter, more withdrawn, and would even spend most of his time online. But as they say, sometimes opposites attract, and it can feel quite magnetic. And so, with that out the way, every day they would keep on talking. Time zones didn't even really seem to slow them down, actually. In Canada, Ashley would wake up early before school just to catch him late at night in England. And if that wasn't enough, she would stay up late only to squeeze in another hour of conversation. And as you can imagine, before long, Jack wasn't really just a friend. He became the person that she would talk to about quite literally everything. Her day, her worries, her dreams, and her anxieties. In fact, soon enough, he would even post her gifts in the mail. Romantic stuff like teddy bears and clothes and jewelry. Her family knew about him too, by the way. Jack was no secret to Christy. In fact, she'd even seen him on video calls and thought he looked quite normal. To her, he was just a young English kid and definitely seemed innocent enough. And it actually kind of felt wholesome. These were two individual people growing up together with an ocean between them. However, over the years, that friendship did certainly shift. Conversations grew deeper, emotions grew more attached, and before they knew it, they were even talking about meeting one day. By the age of 15, Ashley was even asking her mum if she could fly over to England to meet him. And of course, the answer was a categorical no, because Ashley was way too young to be meeting Tea and Scone's Romeo. However, that idea would never leave her, because in Ashley's mind, Jack was no longer an online friend or even just a good friend for that matter. He was her future, and when the two finally stood face to face, everything would click into place. But unfortunately, while Ashley was busy daydreaming about this great meeting, cracks were already beginning to form.
So that means I should have a
and she had no idea how deep they would go. Like most teenage relationships, Ashley and Jack started to blur the line between sweet and messy. Only, in their case, the messiness didn't come from awkward dates or misunderstandings, but from control instead. And that's because, even with an ocean between them, Jack's insecurities would creep into every conversation. He wanted...
Don't they always?
Know who Ashley was with, who she was talking to, and what boys were around her at school.
Sir. Let me just let him finish.
Mentioned hanging out with any male friends, his mood would sour almost immediately. So, you can probably imagine that what began as mild jealousy would soon slowly turn into daily interrogation. Jack would press Ashley for details, accuse her of flirting, and even convince himself that she was hiding something. And because all of these arguments would happen through a screen, they could stretch on quite literally for hours. Now, at first, Ashley would brush most of this off. As a young teenager, it didn't feel dangerous or concerning. Maybe dramatic, but only at best. So, when the arguments escalated and Ashley had too much...
Arguments? Ain't nothing to be arguing about, sir. But then again...
Quite literally just block him to get some space.
Look, you see what I mean? I'm like, that block button works. Trust me, I know. It's no shade, but that block button does work. Indeed. Respectfully. People just don't understand. Ooh, give me my space. Excuse me, thank you, but no thank you. I'm good. That just seems unfathomable for some people. You blocked me.
If Jack was blocked, he would simply make a new account to speak to her.
See what I mean? That right there. It's that. It's that. It's that for me. Why? Like, it don't take all that. I guess to some people it does.
Sister. Okay, so this is where things begin to get extremely concerning. But when Ashley was 16 and Jack was 19, he decided to get her name tattooed across his entire arm. Of course, to Ashley, it probably felt like devotion, but to her mum, it was a huge red flag.
See what I mean?
Unfortunately, it didn't stop there either. It was during one argument that Jack grabbed a knife from the kitchen and, while still on a video call,
threatening to harm himself, because that's always the classic one. Oh, that's the classic one. We ain't even gotta let him finish, cause we know. That's all. Who? Child, who did that? Watch this. Who just did that? Benzino just did that. Ain't that Coyle Ray Daddy? You remember he had did that? Because who is that? Althena? Whatever her name is. I think it's Althena. Remember? What did he do? Did he hit her or slap her or punch her? He did something. He did something to her. And she was like, oh, I'm about to get ready to. And then he picked up and then she started recording him. Let him finish. Oh, is that my Wi-Fi? Hold on just a second. Cause she is loading. Hold on, give me a second. Let me see if that's my Wi-Fi. Okay, cause I'm still streaming over here.
Deliberately cut through the tattoo of her name, of course, making him bleed heavily in the process.
Oh.
Now, this was a very clear sign of a man who
Look.
was willing to commit violence, even towards himself, if he
Child, I
didn't
forgot
get
my
his
number.
way. And it gets even worse, unfortunately.
Oh, no.
Because while Ashley was walking on eggshells over this intense and exclusive romance, Jack was actually dating multiple women behind her back. The crazy thing is that not only did some of them know about Ashley, but they would even refer to her as the favorite. And
Okay. Who that sound like? I just said his name earlier. Don't that sound like Jonathan? Don't that sound like Jonathan? Old Blueface. You can't talk to nobody else. But I can, cause you know, that's what I do.
point, one of Jack's local friends actually called Ashley during a fight and claimed that Jack would not let her leave his apartment. Just think about that for a second. Ashley, who is all the way over in Canada, would end up mediating a fight for another woman and her own boyfriend. And this is where things get even more infuriating, because I haven't even told you about Jack's history yet. Court records show that Jack already had a history of violence and controlling behavior towards other previous girlfriends.
Oh no,
who,
you don't
by
say.
the way, were completely unknown to Ashley. It actually got so bad that both
I'm still trying to figure out how you got to the point to whereas you done flew across to come and be and see and cause she turned 19, and so I guess you grown now. Okay.
These former partners had even
Go
sought
ahead.
restraining orders against him.
See what I
and
mean?
in one case, he had harassed a girl so badly that after the relationship ended, he even breached court orders not to contact her. But his aggression actually went back further than that, because as a teenager, Jack had assaulted his very own mother during an argument and even dragged her to the floor. In
His
fact,
own
she
mama.
too would eventually take out a restraining order against him.
Not
Now,
your
at the
own
time,
mama.
Ashley actually had no idea that any of this existed. She was only aware of the jealousy, the self-harm, and the control. And don't get me wrong, by the way, her friends did definitely urge her to walk away, because quite simply, anyone looking from the outside could quite clearly see the issue. But the thing is that Ashley did not see Jack in the way that the rest of the world did. Instead, she saw his vulnerable side, that he was broken, and all he really needed was love. And she also believed that if she were there with him in person, things would be different.
Okay.
So,
There you
instead
go.
of pulling away like she should have, Ashley leaned into it instead. She took on more shifts, planned to save more money, and planned to meet Jack sooner. And
Here we
when
go.
she would finally have enough money saved up to board that flight to Heathrow, well, everything would be so much better.
I'm going to send some fucking Ukrainian. You have no idea.
It was in November of 2021, and
Okay.
the 6-month visa
If you say so.
approved and a suitcase finally packed, that
6
Ashley
months
said goodbye
visa.
to her family at the airport. Hindsight can be a horrible thing,
It sure
but
can.
it was later on that her mother admitted that she had a
Bad feeling about it,
this.
don't we
It
all?
wasn't a logical one, or even one that she could quite clearly explain. It
Mm-hmm.
was just a bad gut feeling. But unfortunately,
She know
Ashley
it.
was now 19 years old.
Grown,
And
child.
of course, as an adult, she was
Make your
bound
own
to make her own
decisions.
decisions. 12 hours later, and Ashley and Jack would meet at Heathrow like something straight out of a movie. This was the moment that, after nearly 10 years of speaking to each other, that two longing hearts would finally close the gap. There is even a photo of that moment with Jack with his arm for a brief moment, it really does look like a happy ending. However, as these stories usually go, it wasn't. And unfortunately, this was only the beginning of an actual nightmare. After meeting at the airport, Jack then brought Ashley back to his one-bedroom flat, which was found on Tennyson Road. It was nothing fancy, it was just a modest apartment that felt cramped and a little bit worn down. But to Ashley, that, of course, really didn't matter, because now she had
was
Jack.
with.
The first fortnight together went by without any issues whatsoever.
Mm-mm.
And honestly, it probably felt like a honeymoon. They played tourists around London, walked through its many old streets, and took selfies wherever they went. They even adopted a little grey kitten named Winston that Ashley absolutely adored. And on FaceTime calls made back to Canada, Ashley proudly showed her mum the flat, the streets, the cat, and even Jack cooking them dinner. And if you were scrolling through her social media, you would very likely think that she was finally happy. And
this new year, it's time to finally learn the sewing skills you've always wanted to learn.
I know that's right.
$1.50.
And the
do.
truth is that, at least to begin with, she was.
It was straight.
Because Jack was attentive, affectionate,
Yeah.
and eager to please.
Mhm.
And not only would he...
Man, listen, I was just talking about that. I was literally just talking about that. The question was, what is your favorite form of intimacy? Because we're discussing intimacy. And the question was, what is your favorite form of intimacy? And then you have, what is your favorite form of intimacy to give? And what is your favorite form of intimacy to receive? So it was kind of going down that intimacy rabbit hole. And I had a part 1 and a part 2 for that question. Technically, it wasn't supposed to be a part 2. I just didn't have my phone with me, and I had forgot that I had already answered the question. But I had already recorded the video. So I just made it a part 2. And now I have to go back in, or tomorrow it'll be, what is my favorite form of intimacy to receive? I feel like I've already recorded that question, like, but I think I just got the question like mixed up or something like that. But anyway, say all of that to say,
along with her ideas, but he would always be on his best behavior too.
the big, you know how at that honeymoon phase when you like first meet somebody, and let me cut the lights down because being this close, I hear it. Let me see. I got some blue. Let me see. And then I got. She always has to take so much to. That's red. Oh no. I was trying to see if it was gonna give me like a solid red, just cause I have to like. My eyes, I gotta, you know what I mean, like tone them down or descend them as I get ready to get off. Try my eyes to be all pew, 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 when I get off, fooling with this ring light. So the question was, hey, what's your favorite form of intimacy? And I was like, you know, I kind of like, you know, that honeymoon phase at the beginning when you are first getting to know someone, and you know, they're eager to talk to you, you're eager to talk to them. It's like so cool because everybody is, you know, I don't want to say being on their best behavior. That just seems a little, but at the same time, you kind of understand the concept of that phrase, being on your best behavior, because it's like, ooh, 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 and you're so anxious to talk to each other, and texting, calling, and stuff like that. And so I was like, I do kind of like that phase. And then as I was, explaining and diving into it, and I was like, you do also have to kind of be very mindful, also, because unfortunately, the manipulation becomes
Say best behavior because sadly, this was not the real or authentic Jack. Now, one of the problems, and I say one because there are many, trust me, is that neither of them worked. For Ashley, it was quite simple. It's because she was a tourist and on a tourist visa. But Jack, well, he didn't because that was just Jack. Of course, what this meant is that both of them were always stepping on each other's toes because neither of them had their own space or their own group of friends. And because they had no money, they couldn't do anything fun together. The truth is that Jack didn't really have his own friends either. And he spent most of his days playing Xbox or smoking weed. And unfortunately, Ashley didn't know many people in the area. In fact, he would even discourage her from talking to new people or even neighbors. And whenever she messaged anyone, he would always ask who it was. Now, despite all of this, Ashley still tried to remain positive, and she would even hope that this was merely just an adjustment phase. She would even try to bring him into her church community, hoping that faith and new friends would hopefully open him up. However, let's just say that Jack didn't want anything to do with it. Instead, he just wanted Ashley at home, by his side, doing
all
nothing.
day, every day, doing nothing.
On Boxing Day, that things took a serious turn when Jack tried to overdose. Ashley would find him barely responsive and immediately called for an ambulance, which very likely saved his life. And of course, not only would this be a terrifying ordeal for her, but it would also change the dynamic of their relationship
For sure.
overnight.
For sure.
When the hospital staff discharged Jack, they wouldn't only send him home, but actually sent him into Ashley's care. They would actually give all of his medication inside a lockbox to her, meaning that she was now in control of his health care. What that means is all of a sudden, this 19-year-old girl who was alone in a foreign country wasn't merely someone's girlfriend, but was actually responsible for managing someone else's mental health. And here is the terrible thing about situations like this. But responsibility can create guilt. That guilt can make leaving feel almost impossible. Once you believe that someone might hurt themselves without you, walking away starts to feel like abandonment. And unfortunately, Ashley was very firmly in that position. Now, Ashley would not tell many people back at home about what happened. Instead, she downplayed it, protected Jack, and kept all details vague. And this is because not only did she not want her family to worry, but she didn't want them to hate him either. In essence, she was trying to pull two opposite forces together. But the truth will always stand when her sister eventually found out and then told their mum. Christy was thoroughly traumatized.
For sure.
She begged her daughter to come home, but even still, Ashley, at least for now, refused. And the truth is that, at least for a short while, things would die down. But then, all of a sudden, and out of nowhere, the violence stopped being emotional and instead became physical. It was during an argument one evening that Jack grabbed a heavy beer mug and then smashed it over Ashley's head, shattering it against her skull in the process. And after stepping over that boundary, those altercations became more and more common. I mean, we are dealing with classic domestic abuse here, folks. Every outburst would come with apologies and promises that it would never happen again. And Jack would say that he was broken, that he didn't know what he was doing, and that he was sorry. But of course, that cycle would soon become a pattern. And the crazy thing is that Jack's family even knew that some of this was going on. It was in the middle of January that they tried to help smooth things over by taking both of them away for a short seaside trip. Kind of like a reset button to the relationship. And as expected, things did calm down, at least for a few days. But as soon as they returned home to Chelmsford, Jack's paranoia came rushing back. Not only would he go through Ashley's phone quite obsessively, but he would even control all of her social media. meaning that she was no longer allowed to use any of it without him in the same room. It also meant that he could monitor whoever she spoke to, read all of her private messages, read any conversations that he didn't like, and even impersonate her if he chose to. The really frustrating thing here is that even still, and somehow, Ashley decided to stay, likely because somewhere in her mind she was still holding on to the boy that she met all those years ago when she was 12. But
Don't worry. I got it. I got it. You know, when it comes to that domestic violence, you know, you have to tread very lightly, especially for someone who's never experienced it. Believe me, I know. No worries. I know to stay in my little lane. I ain't got no business even talking about it. That ain't even nothing I got to do. I ain't got nothing to do with it. I sure don't. I quite sympathize if you ask me. I really do. I'm telling you, I do. I really, really do. Because it's you see how he was, and then this, and then that, and then, and she probably thought that, and, you know, because now and she probably, and, you know, more than likely, and I'm like, smashing a beer mug, glass, whatever over my head. Well, you always gotta click stuff. Just let it finish, John. Before I get upset. Got me all in my feelings.
end of January, Ashley was no longer living with this idealized boyfriend, but instead was living with this monster who needed to own her.
Can you just drop me this shit so I can go on about my business?
By the end of January, the relationship between Ashley and Jack wasn't just unhealthy or unstable, but quite literally a nightmare on rocket fuel. They were now arguing multiple times a day, which was always sparked by Jack, who by now had become so paranoid that he was terrifying Ashley. And she wasn't the only one. Her family and friends were frantic about her. Apparently, they could all hear it in her voice messages too. She seemed almost guarded with what she was saying, kind of like she was trying not to rock the boat, or trying not to tread on eggshells. Being honest with you, it is quite hard to know what precisely Ashley was thinking, because, again, I'm just a storyteller that does my own research.
See what I mean?
However, whatever it wasn't good. And then, probably the 1st of 2022, everything changed. It was around 8 a.m. that morning that the neighbor next door, named Ellen, heard screaming through the wall. Shortly after, she heard a frantic knock at the front door, and when she opened it, she saw Ashley. Ashley was standing there, barefoot, shaking and bleeding, and she told Helen that Jack had attacked her and smashed her phone. And tragically, that wasn't it. He'd also picked up their kitten and then thrown it against the wall. And as you can imagine, that last detail angers me so much that I literally feel blind thinking about it.
Oh, okay, so that's why Nero made his little cameo.
For Ashley, she was terrified. She told Helen she believed that Jack was actually going to kill her. And she felt this way because he had quite literally told her that. But the problem here is that when Helen told Ashley that she was going to call the police, Ashley pleaded her not to.
So what you went over there to the neighbor's house for if you said that he smashed your phone? What you over here for? What you came over here for? Like, ma'am?
Scared about the
See what I mean?
consequences and what Jack might do if officers showed up. So instead, Helen decided to go speak to him directly. When Jack answered the door, he immediately switched into apology mode and promised her that everything was okay and it would never happen again. And then somehow, between the three of them, all of this just suddenly stopped being an issue. Despite the commotion, Helen had no choice but to just carry on with her day. However, only a couple hours later, Ashley realized that she really needed help. With her mobile phone now destroyed,
Exactly.
she quietly took Jack's phone and messaged anyone that she could think of. We're talking friends back in Canada and even her new friends from church in England. Basically anyone that might respond quickly. And the message to everyone was very plain and simple. Reading, "It's Ashley. I need help. It's an emergency. Please." It was around 3 a.m. in Vernon that Christy still answered her phone for her daughter, and in that moment, everything seemed to come out. We're talking about the abuse, the fear, the lies, and the fact that she no longer felt safe around Jack. She would even tell her mother
Good
she
job.
wanted to come home immediately.
Immediately.
Well, they wanted that for her too. But the thing is that COVID testing rules were still unfortunately in place, meaning that the next possible flight was still more than 48 hours away, which, of course, was not good news for Ashley. So, between Christy and Ashley, the two decided to hatch a plan. If Jack was to get violent again, then she would leave immediately and go straight to the airport.
Why you gotta wait till the next
Or
time?
waiting or messing around, but just simply
What
getting
you
the
waiting?
hell out of there.
What you waiting
And
for the
this was
next
good
time?
news, because it meant that for the first time since arriving in England, Ashley finally had an exit strategy. However, here is the horrible thing.
Exactly.
When an abuser knows that they no longer have control, well, that is when the real danger begins. And it was sometime just after midday that Ashley's messages suddenly stopped.
I'm like, what you waiting for the next time? Oh, well, you know what? The next time that happened, what?
Following that phone call to emergency services, which had been made by Ashley's church friends, officers were not prepared for what they would find. Because amidst all of the chaos and horror, they also found normalcy. Ashley had been beaten, strangled, and then stabbed more than 90 times with a kitchen knife in what Jack would later describe as a frenzy. But what he did next was what really shocked officers. According to all of the evidence available, he then hid the kitchen knife behind the radiator, picked up his phone, and then started to film himself. And then, standing there and covered in Ashley's blood while she lay motionless behind him, he then confessed to the entire thing on camera. And then, after filming this video, he wouldn't hand himself in or even call the police for that matter. Instead, he just went and played Xbox. And we know this because detectives found his controller to be covered in blood. By the way, it is worth noting here that the reason why Ashley's church friends called the police is because apparently those messages sent by Ashley didn't quite sound like her. Apparently, the tone was very different to the usual. And as you likely have guessed by now, that's because it wasn't actually Ashley, but Jack instead, who now had access to all of her social media. And although he was telling all of her friends that she was actually okay, in reality, she was actually dead. Extraordinarily, when police officers arrived, they actually found Jack on FaceTime with his sister. And when police arrested him, he didn't fight, instead opting to try to excuse himself. He said that he'd, quote, gone psychotic, that he'd taken drugs, and that all of this wasn't his fault. By the way, toxicology reports would later show that he only had cannabis and prescribed medication in his system, and none of this would explain any loss of reality. Detectives also found the knife hidden behind the radiator, blood belonging to Ashley all over the apartment, and a myriad of messages and other digital evidence. Faced with all of this, Jack decided not to fight the charges when he finally made it to court. Instead, he pleaded guilty to murder, therefore saving her family the pain of a trial. His sentencing would take place later that year at Chelmsford Crown Court. Ashley's family flew in all the way from Canada to attend, where they hoped to see Jack get crushed by the law. And thankfully, the judge did not go easy on him. For the murder of Ashley Wadsworth, Jack Seppel received a life sentence with a minimum term of 23.5 years before he could even be considered for parole. And so, of course, this means that Jack will likely spend the rest of his adult life behind bars. And personally, I damn hope so. During the many victim impact statements, Christie spoke about sleepless nights and the way that holidays now feel hollow, about how birthdays no longer bring joy and only painful reminders. Meanwhile, her father described how grief had changed him completely and how everyday life feels heavier. And somehow, in the middle of all of that, Jack even wrote letters from prison to Ashley's family. In these letters, he blamed his intrusive thoughts and poor mental health, adding that he was sorry.
What makes Zaxby's giant chicken finger quesadillas so giant? Crispy fingers, salt,
I need to go get me another one. I need to get me another one.
What makes this case so unsettling is how common this pattern actually is.
Exactly.
Jack didn't start with violence or control, but small issues instead. Small issues, when packaged up, kind of look like affection or care. But left unchecked, those insecurities took over. And when they did, any chance of being a compassionate partner went completely out the window. I mean, the fact that he carved out her name in his tattoo is absolutely diabolical. I have never heard anyone ever do that before. This guy is psychopathic. I would like to highlight here that whenever people ask why didn't she leave sooner, you have to remember the answer is never quite that simple.
Sure.
By the time that Ashley was murdered, she had known Jack for almost a decade, which meant that he was not only just a friend or a partner, but he was her childhood, her future, and her safe space. And so walking away would have meant saying goodbye to years of her own life. This massively plays into the dynamics of sunk cost fallacy. And I'm not going to lecture you guys about what precisely that is, but if you're interested in learning a thing or two, go Google it. It is also worth noting that for anyone who is ever in a situation like Ashley, the best and safest thing you can do is leave without notice. And tragically, the moment that she finally decided to go back home and book that flight was actually the moment that she became in the most vulnerable position. Because when someone who is so obsessed with control finally loses it, that is when they snap. Back home in Vernon, Ashley has been missed beyond words. She was a daughter, a sister, and a friend to many. She was the kind of girl who made people feel included without even trying. The one who always laughed too loud and stayed up late for a mate and was always fair. She loved the outdoors, loved camping, and loved road trips. She had this restless, curious energy, which kind of makes it almost painfully fitting that she crossed an ocean to try to be with someone that she believed in. That was Ashley through and through, by the way, because she always believed in people, even when she probably shouldn't have. When someone like that dies, it leaves a space that you can't really fill. During her memorials, people did fleetingly mention what happened to her, but they preferred to talk about her smile, her jokes, her personality, and her stubborn optimism. The horrible realization is that by now, Ashley probably would have finished university. She would be traveling, or building a career, or maybe even making new friends. Maybe even living her life with an actual caring boyfriend. But tragically, instead of all of that, all her family can carry is memories. Ashley flew across the world believing that she was starting her future. However, instead, she walked straight into someone who couldn't stand the idea of losing control. And when she finally chose herself, when she finally decided to come home, it tragically cost her everything. Jack Sepple will spend decades behind bars, and hopefully he will grow old in a cell with nothing but time to think about what he did. But as we know, no sentence and no court ruling and no number of years will ever balance what Ashley and her family has lost. There is no punishment that is equal to giving someone their life back. And tragically, all we are left is with this story. And maybe that's why telling it is really important here. Because even if one person watching recognizes those same warning signs and decides to leave their abusive relationship sooner and discreetly, then maybe Ashley's story does in fact mean something. If you ever need help, then please reach out to someone you can trust.
Please.
Anyway, folks, on that note, I'm going to wrap this one up here.
Okay, I'm wrapping it up too, Adrian Child. You don't see me over here wrapping it up, honey.
Thank you so much
for making it this. Ain't nothing but the lights left.
And of course, I'd like to see you again next week if you'd like to.
Child, I'm always here.
And thanks again to HelloFresh
for
sponsoring today's video.
I be late, but I'm always here fooling with Adrian.
Anyway, folks, that's all from me today. Thank you again, and see you next week.
See
Until
you.
remember to rise, though. Remember to look after yourselves and, of course, each other. Take care. Goodbye.
Oh my goodness. Love you guys. Mwah.